Hello, my name's David Seaman, and this is the Three Lions Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions Podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. I hope I find you well. Here we are. We're into August. Wow. 2024 just sailing by. Season is looming. Half the Premier League are in, different time zones across the world selling their brand. Whilst back home, the FA Cup is already underway. The road to Wembley has begun. Thanks for your comments on the previous episode. That was the one where I took a brief look at Gareth Southgate's time as England manager. In time, I'll cover him properly in the Managers series. That's a series where I chronologically look at all the men that have managed England. It was something I began back in COVID, talking about Walter Winterbottom with his son-in-law, who had written a biography about him. And then periodically I made my way through each of the managers with people who have done varying degrees of research on them. Those that have written about them or helped with their autobiographies. The last one I recorded was a little while back now, I have to be honest. It was back in January with Jacob Steinberg, how he ghost wrote Glenn Hoddle's autobiography. As always, they are available to listen to at your leisure through your podcast provider or threelionspodcast.com. The next one is Kevin Keegan. It is a work in progress, shall we say. Speaking of previous England managers, one who has returned to a top job is Steve McLaren. Did you see he is now head coach of Jamaica? That was a surprise, I have to say. I bet you didn't see that coming. And at the time of recording, we are about a month away from England's first game since that Euro final, and we still don't know who will replace Gareth Southgate. The FA have closed the door for applications, so you'd imagine that they'll be sifting through them, talking between themselves, talking with applicants in secret. Having read previously how England managers have been contacted before, it's kind of cloak and dagger. I wonder what sort of stories will come out of this appointment. We'll have to wait and see. But back to this episode, we're going back to Germany. Since that tournament, I have spoken with a few fans for their memories and such of Euro 2024, and periodically over the next few months I'll release them out as episodes. This is the first one. It's one where I've been joined by Jordan Houlston. Hope you enjoy it. I'd like to welcome to the Three Lions Podcast Grimsby, an England fan. Jordan Houlston is here to talk us through Germany 2024. Jordan, hello there.
How we doing, Russell? Good to speak to you again. It feels like 2 minutes has gone since we were out there. Doing whatever we were doing.
we were having fun for the vast majority of the time, weren't we?
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. It was definitely sort of one of them experiences that you'll carry sort of for the rest of your life, 100%.
Yeah. Had you had like England tournament experience before?
Yeah, so kind of. I mean, I'm a relative newbie, especially sort of in amongst the group that we sort of travel in. My first and only England game up until the first Euros in England in 2021 was in 2006 at Old Trafford against Wimbledon.
Wow.
The famous Peter Crouch robot game.
Wow.
Fast forward 15 years, and I remember it like it was yesterday, really. I'd applied sort of home tournament, thought brilliant. Obviously, I'll see about getting tickets, and looked at UEFA. And I remember being in a training session at work, getting an email coming through saying you have tickets available now. I'd missed out in the ballot, but I got through like at the later stages.
Yeah.
I remember running out of a work training conference, like just saying, gotta go, like totally out of, like, didn't read the room, gotta go. On the phone to my mates, give me some money now, we've got to go, got to get England tickets. Obviously, then the pandemic came along, and I lost my UEFA tickets through the ballot, which I think most people obviously did.
Yeah.
Wrote it off as what it was, and then the tournament actually came along, and I was one of those that sort of paid for over the odds through Twitter.
Gotcha.
In and out, sort of dodging through the scammers and the whatnot, and I actually ended up making it to every game, which is a funny story because my son's mum was pregnant at the time.
Awkward.
Yeah, she'd given me permission to go to one. And it
You stretched out to 7.
Absolutely. I remember just before the Scotland game, we were sat in the kitchen and Sky Sports News were on in the background, and they were playing 3 lines, and I was humming it, and she just looked at me and went, "How much is it going to cost?" And the final was, I think, it was the 11th on it, and our due date was the 27th.
Yeah.
So it was murder getting permission for that one. And then I'll never forget, half time and extra time, she texted me saying, "I don't want you to panic, but I'm feeling a few." Now you can imagine sort of that. But yes, to answer the question, it was my first foreign tournament.
Yeah.
Was meant to do Qatar, but for one reason or another, sort of didn't quite happen.
Yeah.
So this was and I think for a lot of England fans as well, as you saw in the media, like this was the first proper one where there's going to be masses of England fans sort of on foreign soil. So it's a very long-winded answer saying it was my first proper tournament abroad.
Ah, nice one. So, I mean, what were your expectations and what were your preparations for it all?
You know what? I pretty much went all in. Yeah. I fully expected us to at least get to sort of quarters, if not semis.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, sort of the industry I work in, so I work in the holiday industry, so getting time off at this time of the year is almost like a big no-no. Coming into peak season, I mean, I'd basically, knowing the industry that I work in, had to sort of start. I had to basically bank on us getting as far as we did, and preparations-wise, God, I had a full-on spreadsheet. First of all on paper, then on Excel, which had everything categorised from flight time, airport, parking, time in, time out, commute, accommodation, everything. All banking on us winning the group as well.
Yeah.
So I put the annual leave request in December, and I think it got approved 3-4 weeks before the tournament started. So that was stressful.
I bet, yeah.
And so my expectations were fully that we would win the group, and we would certainly get to the latter stages. I think one of my first experiences of tournament football is obviously the nature of how flights work and how the prices of them. So it's a dear do. It's not cheap. So I was sort of booking something each month as I got paid.
Oh, clever.
So I ended up being booked right up to the semi-final, which is I remember sitting in the airport actually for Dortmund. I had a direct flight to Dortmund on the day of the semi. And I remember sitting in the little tunnel just before you get on the plane.
Oh, yeah.
And looking at a couple of lads and saying, "Oh, you lads gambled on this flight as well, then, did you?" And because obviously people were going via Mallorca, they were going everywhere, and I was fortunate enough to have had a direct. I think it was like 55 quid.
Nice.
Booked it like 2-3 months prior. Every single person I spoke to had said, "Yeah, we'd done the same thing. Like we took a punt on that we was going to win the group." So I prepared for it quite well in that I did it in bite-sized chunks throughout the year.
Yeah.
So it didn't really. I mean, it wasn't cheap, but it didn't really cost I mean, I've actually, funny you should say, I was in the gym last night and someone was saying, I bet how much did it cost you? And I said, I've been meaning to tot it all up and sort of figure it out, but it was probably a lot of money, but because I spread it out,
Yeah.
it didn't sort of seem as bad as it was, but fully expected us to get to the latter stages and was probably a bit OCD in the preparation, but it was.
Hey, it works.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Especially, I mean, obviously being a parent as well, sort of, I had to consider that and sort of come. Some of the lads, obviously, that we go with, were able to stay out for sort of weeks, if not the whole thing, and I was in and out, in and out, in and out, which was exhausting in itself.
Yeah.
But as we touched on earlier, I almost got used to it. It became. I want people, if I don't sleep, I know about it, and I almost got used to it. Like, so still adjusting, I think, from what's left over.
Yes, know the feeling. Likewise, I was the same, going in and out. For me, it was like the first two were sort of adrenaline fueled, and then the third one, I was like, oh my blimey, this is going to be hard work.
Well, that's where we met, wasn't it? I remember me and Nick Jones being sat outside Wetherspoons waiting for it to open, and you sort of trotting up, you're looking almost half dead, exhausted, and it was like, oh, I'm Jordan, by the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're right. Sort of the first couple you was raring to go.
Yeah. By
the third, I think that was the one where I think I maybe had one beer in the whole trip because I was just exhausted. So yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, mate.
So go on in the group stage, Serbia, Denmark, and Slovenia. Well, I mean, football-wise, it wasn't the best. Let's be honest. I mean, everyone knows that. But go on, what sort of surrounded the group games for you? What do you remember?
Oh wow! I was funny you should say again. Like I was chatting to somebody about it in the gym yesterday, and especially in this tournament, I said to a mate of mine, I said, "Do you know what? Like the best part of the tournament, particularly in the group games, was what was happening before and after."
Yep.
The football. I mean, obviously we ventured forth to Bochum just by Gelsenkirchen, where I met sort of some of the guys, and for the first time, who have now gone on sort of become real good friends. I befriended a couple of Dutch, strangely enough, I don't know if you remember, a couple of Dutch lads that were sat behind me watching their team who were coming to the England game. And then the day of the semi-final, I got a message on Instagram of one of them who said, "Oh, are you going to the game?" And I met him there.
Oh, fair play.
It wasn't great, was it?
No.
It was. I think the first game was. I think we started well, but then just sort of sat back and struggled to break Serbia down. I think we didn't really look like we was going to find a second goal. The Denmark game, wow! I mean, that was. I think we were probably lucky to come away with a point from that one.
Yeah.
After what was probably a brightish sort of start, and then we were pretty much clinging on. I remember the Danes being great that day. Their support was fantastic.
Yeah, that block of red.
Yeah, no, 100%. The Frankfurt Stadium was probably one of my favourites that I visited during the trip. I love the sort of out of concourse where once you were through, you could sort of come in and out and you weren't sort of penned in.
Yeah.
All I remember about Cologne was horrendous heat. It was the one of the only games where it was really hot.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the most uncomfortable things for me. We got packed on the trams, and I think the organisation, as has been well documented, was horrendous. I remember coming back post-match, and it was red hot. People were obviously in a bit of a bad mood, and there was people that were young kids, like stood on these real packed out trains. And I was a dad. I mean, I just sat thinking, I don't think I'd be comfortable sort of bringing my kids to that sort of environment. And I remember actually getting halfway down the tram and just getting off and walking.
Yeah. Because
it was just so uncomfortable. Most of them didn't even have windows. It was like a sweatbox. But what do I remember the most about the group stages? You know what? Probably more than anything, I think you're right in that the football's probably not something that you really remember from the groups.
Yeah.
It was more sort of when I started to meet the guys. We had the 109 event in Dusseldorf, and actually something that I'll never ever forget. And I'd like to sort of give a real big shout out to particularly Kunal and CJ at 109. I had mentioned to them that sort of I'd gone through sort of some personal challenges in the previous couple of years, and had some help from a gambling charity called Gordon Moody. And within minutes, they'd given a donation to that charity of £109, which genuinely nearly moved me to tears. Like I'd known Kunal before, but I'd only just met CJ, and I remember texting my old man, and sort of my old man was choking up about it as well. And they're the things not sort of charity donations, but the people. That's what you go for. And that's something that sort of really stands out for me. Those first initial trips. Yeah. But the group stages, I remember Cologne being a beautiful place, real nice. One of the nicer parts of where we went. I think Frankfurt was a bit suspect, particularly in and around the train station. And yeah, I don't remember much of the football. I just literally remember.
Wasn't worth remembering, to be honest.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But the main thing is we were through, weren't we?
Yeah, and I think that obviously I had a lot of time sort of sat in airports and on trains and et cetera, and I read a lot of sort of the news articles, and everybody sort of had different opinions about. I say different opinions. I think everyone had the same opinion that the system was wrong. The system was Phil Foden, for example, was on the one hand, he's being criticised for poor performances, but on the other hand, how can you criticise him when he's playing sort of as a left winger? He wanted to play in the 10, and then you had Jude Bellingham in the 10, and was Harry Kane fit? There were so many different sort of side issues that were just distract. It felt like we almost didn't really know what our. Yeah. Or actually, on the other side, we did know, and it was like it just felt all wrong. We knew how we were going to set up, and it was like screamingly obvious, not working. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We won the group, which for my bank balance was my annual leave was definitely a relief. I remember sitting there the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes of that Slovenia game.
Yeah.
I think if Denmark would have scored or someone else, then we'd have finished second.
Right.
And I remember sitting there thinking, it's all going Pete Tong if that happens, because I've got all my annual leave, which I've had to beg, borrow, and steal to get. I got flights. It would have been a disaster. So I suppose that was a big positive. Yeah. But group stage, football massively unremarkable, but experiences were great.
Yeah. Well, the reward for getting through the group stage was another trip back to Gelsenkirchen, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Now, it's funny you should you touch on that. So that was, as I think I mentioned previously, I was exhausted by the Cologne game.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people swerved that one.
Yeah, you're right.
I was sort of inches away from not bothering. I was exhausted. I was tired. I remember actually speaking to my old man on the phone and saying, I'm going to give this one a miss. And then telling him a couple of days later, I'm going. He says, I knew you would. But I think I was, you was on, was it the coach from Eindhoven?
I've done a coach, from Eindhoven,
Eindhoven. So I know that sort of one thing that put a lot of people off was the train chaos post-match in which we were sort of fortunate enough to avoid.
Yeah.
We'd obviously been a bit savvy, and was it Mark Griffith's coach?
No, this was Dean Cornish's coach.
No, I think Dean's was the one.
I done two Dean Cornish coaches. One that got in early doors. Well, got in early doors to both of them.
Oh yeah, no. Though I think the first gate, the Eindhoven flight I did was Mark's. I'm sure.
Oh, okay.
With Nick. I'm sure you were there, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
So many coaches.
We were quite savvy in that he parked the coach just by a Chinese restaurant about 20 minutes away.
That was the very first game.
That's what I'm on about.
That's
what I'm on about.
Gotcha.
So what I'm saying is, we'd avoided that travel chaos because that's what we'd done.
Right. Yes, I understand what you mean.
So I think we were probably a bit more up for it. Whereas the ones that, for example, if it had been Dortmund later on, after my experience in the semi, I might well have swerved it.
Yes.
So that round of 16 game, it was, we were back to Bochum, back to the 360 Sports Bar.
Yeah.
Which I remember that because there was a park run going on, and must have been thousands of Germans running through the bar.
Yeah.
Getting a little shot of beer. And they were stopping with us for photos like we were celebrities. I had my flag up and they were taking pictures with my flag, and they loved it. They absolutely loved us. But again, wow. So I suppose that's, funnily enough, I know I must have done this all previously yesterday, but I was saying to a mate, that was the one I nearly swerved. And I'd say that's probably one of the two sort of most memorable moments. Yeah. I remember sitting there talking to one of some guy next to me. I can't remember who it was. I had my head in my hands, and I was just saying it's too early. It can't end like this. Like all the build up, all the planning, sort you just mentioned, the preparation, and the. I said to my boss actually a few days later, if we'd have gone out in the next round, I'd probably have felt like I at least had my money's worth.
Right? Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. You see the ball come in, and whenever you see someone go up for an overhead kick, you're almost thinking in the back of your head, "What are you doing?" And
because 9 times out of 10 they'll go over the bar into Rosette or straight into the keeper's arms.
That's it. And then to see that nestling in the net, it was wow. That's one of them. I remember actually picking my phone up. I had a text from my mum. My mum has no interest in football.
Right.
Just said, wow.
Go on, Mum.
Yeah, that's my mum. And I think I knew straight away from then on that we'd go on to win that game. I think the Slovakians were done, weren't they? They were out on their feet. One other thing I remember from that game, before that game, as I'm sure you'll remember, was the delights of the hostel stroke pub that we visited in Dover.
Yes.
Prior to getting on the ferry.
Yes.
I think all their Christmases came at once when a coach load of England fans. I don't think they had drunk. It was all cans, wasn't it? And bottles.
Yes.
And
what was that place called?
I'm trying to remember.
Was it First and Last or something along those lines?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah. And it was I don't think they were expecting it.
No, 50 odd England fans piling into this pub that was the size of a front room, really, wasn't it?
Oh, it was minuscule. We had to stand outside, didn't we?
Yeah. Fortunately, it wasn't raining, but yeah, you're right. This pub in a back street in Dover. Yes,
that was a memorable one. But I suppose the overriding feel at the end of that round of 16 was, and I remember quoting the old Wolf of Wall Street gag, "The show goes on." And it was so yeah, that was I think that's that, and probably obviously Watkins' goal were the two sort of standout moments for me of the tournament.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Harry Kane got what turned out to be the winner so soon into extra time, held on to make our way to the quarterfinals. Switzerland in Düsseldorf, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the Swiss had impressed, hadn't they? They'd looked real. Was it Italy they beat in the game before, 2-0?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, they looked strong. And I think a lot of people were sort of, it was shocking to think we were almost being sort of written off. And it was, which I remember, like, you look at the players we've got on pace, it's ridiculous. Like, I remember people in the media saying, you'd have offered us this sort of 2 weeks ago, we'd have bit your hand off.
Yeah.
I mean, Southgate's been very fortunate with draws throughout his tenure. And you were almost going into it thinking, bloody hell, this will be a stern test.
Yeah.
Dusseldorf, that was one thing I remember about those stuff was them seats. Them metal seats that we had, because obviously it was a safe standing there. We were all the fans first were blocked into that corner. We had those metal foldy seats, didn't we?
That's right.
Which were a death trap, because every time when a goal went in, everyone was piling forward because there was nothing to lean on. I remember I had a few friends from back home come over for that one, and which is always a funny thing I've had as an England member. Sort of when the big games come up, you get your mates messaging you, "Can you get me a ticket?"
Yeah.
No, mate, you've got to go to Malta at home, North Macedonia away to be in this fortunate position. But it was packed in. I was outside I'm sure it was an Irish bar, and we were a couple of mates from home came out for that one, we had a good laugh. And funnily enough, I was sat behind that goal, and they paid sort of over the odds for some Cat 1 tickets. And I could see them, literally perfect eye line. They couldn't see me. And I was sending them pictures of them saying, look at the state of you. They were having a great time. But we rode a luck again, didn't we? And I remember saying to Kunal next to me after they scored, because it was late set, like 78, 79th minutes, something like that. And I remember saying to him, we've got away with it once. We ain't getting away with it again. And little did I know that obviously Saka, and that was a strange goal, because I think it was one of them where he's hit it right across the face of the goal, hasn't he? And I don't think anyone expected that. Obviously, our seats were quite low as well, weren't they? So you couldn't quite see the goal line. Yeah. So it was
for me. Then it almost, there was like, you could hear a pin drop for a split second.
Yeah.
Before it just erupted.
And you heard that thud off the post, didn't you? Smack. And I was like, oh, he scored.
Yeah. It was a bit of disbelief, wasn't it? That's gone in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he made, I remember a big thing about that game was he made, was it 2-3 changes straight after they scored?
Yeah.
And I think that was where a lot of these reactive, not proactive, sort of started to come out.
Yeah.
Again. And then I remember getting to penalties and speaking to, I think it was Bruce, and he said, I'm not confident. And I said, honestly, Pickford in goal. I just had absolute faith that Jordan Pickford in a penalty, even the ones we've lost, like you look at the Italy final, he saved 2 in that one.
Yeah.
I just thought that I had absolute confidence that Jordan Pickford would do the business. Which obviously he did. And I remember that one, actually. After that, the celebrations were amazing. I'll always remember that guy stood on the Euro.
Yeah, on the little tarpaulin over
stood on the tarpaulin.
Yeah, above the exits.
You were just thinking that thing's going to cave in any second more. But it was that was a great day. I remember coming back. That was one of the days when I was exhausted.
Right.
I think one thing that will always stand out in my mind from Dusseldorf, though, Russell, as I'm sure you'll remember rightly, was a certain incident when we went for breakfast.
Was this Dusseldorf or was this Dortmund?
No, it was Dusseldorf.
Was it Dusseldorf? Again, I keep forgetting which one's which.
It was Dusseldorf, because I'd been Amsterdam the night before on my mate's stag. And I was a bit worse for wear. So for all you listeners out there, we had ordered a nice sort of English breakfast, and just as I've gone to,
I was sitting next to you, supping on my my nice orange juice, fresh out of here.
That was brilliant orange juice, wasn't it? Yeah. But, put a nice generous helping of pepper on my breakfast when a gust of wind. Was it perfect timing or terrible timing? I'm not sure. Yeah, safe to say you got an eyeful, but it wasn't just the fact it got you an eye; it was the noise you made. It was almost like a yelp for help, and I think there must have 5 or 6 of us just howling for a good 10 minutes. And what made it so much funnier was that 5-10 minutes later, you went, I'm going to have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to have to go to the bathroom and get this sorted out.
Actually, I've never been pepper sprayed before in my life, but I was never expecting to experience it in a brunch. all of a sudden this pepper just whips across my eye, and I sort of dust it off. I'm like, oh, that tickles. And I literally spent 5 minutes with my head under a tap just trying to get rid of it.
That was that. I'd say that and the two goals were probably my highlights. But yeah, obviously Dusseldorf was. I remember coming home from that one, and I'd been in Amsterdam the day before, so everyone was out celebrating, and I remember just going straight to bed.
Yeah,
straight back to the hotel, straight to bed, and that was another. With obviously Dortmund on the horizon.
Yeah, had you been to Dortmund before? So it's iconic ground, isn't it?
No, I hadn't, and obviously, like a lot of the others, I was really hoping we were going to get the yellow wall.
Of course, yeah.
But do you know what? Actually, and whether it's because it was strange because the Dutch fans were brilliant all day. We were massively outnumbered, probably 4-5 to 1. I've got some quite funny videos of myself stepping foot on a train, and I was the only English person. And I stepped foot on this train, and there's this family. There's a load of drunk Dutch blokes, and this family, and they just looked at me, and I just went, "Oh no!" And they just started laughing. They're going, "You got in some." I can't do a Dutch accent, but you've got on the wrong train here, mate. And you know what? They were good. They were a good sport. I think a few of them. I remember walking down the platform, and someone passed me I was filming the Dutch fans, and one of them passed the toilet roll and went, "You'll need this later." And I remember thinking after that, I was thinking,
"What's he got toilet roll for? Where's he got that from?"
God knows. And I remember saying to one of the lads, "We've got to do these. They've turned up in numbers. We've got to send them home packing." And Dortmund was the only game out of all of them that I actually got my flag in a decent place.
Did you?
Yeah, I remember saying to Kuno, I says, "Right, that's it. I've had enough. I'm getting there." Stood at the turnstile, waiting. 5:45 was there. 22 5:45 was raining. I said to the steward, as soon as the clock goes, you're letting me through first. I sprinted. Still didn't get it on the front. Got it on the range bit, but not on the front.
Yeah.
And wow, so we were massively outnumbered, but I think that's one of the great atmospheres sort of that you'll never forget.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing a poll in our group chat like, did that eclipse Germany 2020? Probably not for me.
Okay.
But as I mentioned earlier, for me that was a first for me as a relatively sort of new full-time travel club member. That was, I don't know, you always remember your first sort of big occasion, don't you?
Yeah.
And it was funny because we were brilliant that first half. I think Declan Rice got caught in possession, didn't he? Sort of in the first 10, 15 minutes. The lads hit it perfectly, hasn't they? And it's but I remember saying to one of the lads next to me, like, I said, we'll do this. Like, I had absolute faith that we were we just didn't look threatened, did we? I think I think we've conceded a silly sort of a silly goal, which it happens. That's football. Penalty. I mean, I've seen sort of people say we were fortunate. For me, I think I remember seeing. So was it someone on ITV had said if that happens outside the box, it's a foul, but you don't give it in the box. For me, the law's clear cut. If it's a foul outside the box, it's a foul inside the box.
Yeah.
And I think I was one of the only people who actually at the time was like, foul, referee, foul. And then obviously we all know what happened next. I think we were all sort of gearing up for extra time. And then it was strange, wasn't it? Because especially where we were stood, we was all in that far corner, weren't we?
Yeah.
And he's almost gone out wide, and you expect him to cross it or hold it up, and you just see the net balls. You know, there were people in tears around me. There was people falling in rows in front. There were people in tears. It was one of them I was there moments. Absolutely. Remember, "Don't Take Me Home" was ringing out for sort of 15 minutes after the game. And I had people messaging me straight away, "Can you get me a final ticket?" and it was just. I must say, what did sour what was an amazing night was I'm sure you know sort of the train situation in Dortmund was just a disaster.
Yeah.
It was. I wasn't there in Gelsenkirchen, but this was as bad, if not worse. I walked back to the station, which was down that green, was it Green Way or something like that?
Yeah.
Got stuck in amongst the Dutch fans, which was a laugh. And we walked past an England pub, and it's all good spirited, but there's a load of English lads with a police cordon outside the pub, all sort of giving it to the Dutch. And I got a few winks from us because I was in the thick of them.
Yeah.
But we got to Dortmund and both platforms were absolutely chocker. I was going back to Essen.
Yep.
And the train was too full, so they wouldn't move the train. People need to get off. Then another train would come, so everyone would swap platform, get on the next one. That train would be too full. The train, I must have been there 2.5, 3 hours. Yeah. I remember seeing there was someone in a wheelchair who was getting wheeled through the train. I actually saw adults crying, like not grown men and women crying. It must have been 2:00 in the morning. It was hot. The police were just, now obviously it's probably more complex than that, but the police were just stood doing nothing. People had too much to drink, so they're shouting to the coppers, "You're doing nothing about it." And you think, what can he do about it? It was clear to me that obviously the organisation was horrendous. They hadn't planned enough. What should have happened in my mind, and I'm no transport expert, was only so many people should be allowed through at each interval, and then there should have been trains going regular.
Yeah.
And in the end, I ended up bumping into a mate of mine and a couple of his friends, and we ended up hovering outside the station for probably we were quite lucky, about 15 minutes. We hollered down some taxi driver and he wanted €200 to take us 15, 20 miles.
Wow.
We got him down to about 180 or something like that. And I remember he was giving it some. Like, I know about the autobahns in Germany, but I was uncomfortable. He was going that quick. Was on the phone all the way there.
Oh.
And it was... So, but yeah, and then I was faced with a dilemma, which I'd booked up to the semi. So I'd booked flights up to the semi. I booked a flight back in case we lost. I remember saying to Paul Dennis, like, I might stay out, I might not. And it was like, do I stay out until after the final? Do I go home? And in the end, I wanted to see my boy. I wanted to come home and see my little lad. I had a few days off. And it would have cost me there were no flights back from Berlin at any reasonable cost or at any actual sensible route. I think Mallorca was being touted quite a lot. I was looking at going via Prague. I booked a flight to Prague, but then it was like 40 quid, so I just booked it. And then getting back was a nightmare. So in the end, I found a coach. There's a fleet of 7 of them, and the lads did a real good job at real short notice. I mean, no one wants to be on a 22-hour coach.
No, not at all.
Given the circumstances, I think it was pretty reasonably priced, and it worked out. I'd have had to pay for another 4 nights hotel, more airport parking, and horrible. So I just thought I'll do it once. Just for the final.
Yeah.
And then obviously, then comes the big day. Well, what could have been the big day, I suppose. Maybe not should.
Yeah. So you coming back in between that semi-final and the final to see your lad, was that a bit of a distraction to sort of the final looming?
What, seeing my son?
Yes. Well, yes.
You know what? It was funny because it was. I had him for a couple of days, and it was. I suppose I felt a little bit not guilty, but obviously my routine with him was quite set because obviously I share him with his mum, and we were sort of having to make it up as we went along, depending on how things went. So it was nice to have a couple of days sort of where I could just sort of chill out and refresh. I had to sort of take him back early because then I was going to airports and then I was going on coaches and dropping him off, etc., etc. So it was nice to have a little bit of a break from the from the chaos of it all, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I'm someone who gets quite homesick anyway. It's funny, I get all dead excited about the travelling, etc., etc., and then sort of I'm a soft sod really. When it's done, all I want to do is be home with my little lad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was sort of itching to get back to him really and have a bit of quality family time. The funny thing was I was in and out of work as well.
Right.
And it was it was futile to say the least. Really, I was the nature of my job, sort of. I mean, in the sales job that I'm in, so you have to sort of build your pipeline, and I was in for 2 days, and like a day here and a day there, and you couldn't get any sort of momentum going, and it was difficult. It was a really funny time. I mean, when I said I got used to it, like I got used to sort of I'm someone who really thrives on a routine a lot. I'm sort of like obsessive with the gym, with my nutrition, with my everything's quite meticulous. My timeline with my son, so that all sort of got thrown out the window. But yeah, it was nice. But after each game, I just wanted to get home. I think that's probably what kept the money side of it. I'd have sort of made work one way or the other. It would have been neither end of there really, but I think I really just wanted to come home and sort of be dad for a couple of days.
That's
and
fair
then,
enough. It's understandable.
Yeah, and then sort of onto Berlin
for one last time.
Yeah, the final hurrah. It was.
What was your thoughts actually for you? Like, because obviously you'd been to the final 3 years before.
Yeah.
Was it different this time? What were you thinking?
How did it feel? I think going into this one, we were again sort of like the Switzerland game. We were billed as underdogs, and I don't know about you or sort of or others, but I didn't get to watch a lot of the tournament because I was
I know what you mean.
In and out. I think I did catch a couple of their games, but one of them I was in Amsterdam on a stag do, and it was on in the background. The Germany game, the semi-final, that was.
Yeah.
But I don't think I realised quite how good they were.
Right.
And I think I was looking at it, and I remember putting in our group chat, you'll probably remember, I'm putting in saying, is it me or are we really like sort of big underdogs against this? I was looking at it player for player and thinking, no one's beating us. But the reality was probably somewhat different. I think they were sort of a well-oiled machine that was sort of firing on all cylinders, and we were a great team of individuals that would sort of stinking our way through the tournament. But in terms of getting to that far, I mean, what was the original question? I've sort of gone off tangent there a little bit.
That's fine. I mean, did it feel different to like 2021?
It did. I think 2020, I fully expected us to win.
Right.
I just fully expect home tournament.
Yeah.
Against an aging Italy side. I couldn't see anything other than an England win. I think obviously the chaos of what was the Euros final, which I caught a bit of it. I mean, as you might remember, one thing I remember about that tournament, apart from the fact that my son was due any day, the game seemed to get messier the further we got through the tournament, and the crowds got bigger, and there was a lot of people around that sort of you knew probably didn't have tickets and were just there to muck about. There's I remember there being like a lot of local kids and stuff like that who were just there to cause trouble. Whereas this one, I remember going into it thinking there's every chance we could lose this game, and probably might. But I remember I remember sitting in the pubs, and I remember must have said to 3 or 4 lads, are we going to do it? Are we going to do it? Almost like I needed reassurance.
Right, yeah.
I remember speaking to like Kunal saying, are we going to do it today? I remember speaking to Paul, a few lads, and they were all like, yeah, we're going to do it. And I don't know, I just had this niggling feeling that I remember saying we can't lose 2 finals. Like, we can't, not again. We can't lose 2. So yeah, it did feel different. It felt I just didn't know.
Fair enough.
The
Yeah.
first one, I thought, yeah, we're going to win this. The second one, I thought one of two things would happen. I thought either we would turn up, put on a real show, and we'd all come. I think what we was all hoping for throughout the whole tournament, apart from 45 minutes against the Netherlands, that we were just going to be suddenly overnight click into this footballing masterclass that was going to, and it just never came.
No. We had moments.
Yeah, and as we'll sort of touch on in that final, I think after I was saying it again yesterday, when we equalised, I thought for 5 minutes, I thought we're going to get a second here. The momentum's with us. They're on the ropes. It was like a boxing match. You're thinking, come on, that kill. But then what happens, as generally does happen, we sat back, we set up the press, and you thought, it's gone. You just knew. For me, anyway, I just knew this is getting away from us again. We just couldn't get the ball off them.
That's their strength, isn't it?
Yeah, we just could not get the ball off them, and I think when we had the ball, their press was so sort of quick and energetic, and they suffocated us. I think that their energy levels were incredible, and we just couldn't get out. We couldn't play. But that day, I mean, going back to that day, I'd again sort of touched on 20 some hour coach. I mean, I'm Skegness based, and I got a coach from Grantham, which is just over an hour or so away. It was fortunately, actually, I had 5 or 6 lads from Grimsby sat next to me. So there's a bit of common ground there. This ferry was quite a bit of sing-songing on it as well.
Was there?
The first, P&O this time. And obviously got to Berlin, went to check the Brandenburg gate out, but it was closed off. So I had a lovely picture from a fence with it.
Oh, no.
200 metres behind me. I noticed I want a great deal of Spanish. It almost felt like the Netherlands game in reverse.
Yes.
There was, I think I saw a few pockets of them, but not anything like there was a lot of English out there. And then we all headed over to and I can't remember the name of it, Irish bar.
There's a couple dotted around, weren't there? There was a Kilkenny's.
That's it, Kilkenny's.
Murphy's, yeah.
Weather wasn't great at the start of the day as well. It was raining a fair bit. And you know what? There's two things one thing that I didn't have, which everyone was, I didn't have a Lucas Podolski kebab.
No, you missed out.
I didn't have one. I didn't have, I was in Cologne Airport and they had one in there.
Oh, in the airport?
Yeah, in the airport, yeah. And I was looking on the screen, like the digital screens that you get at McDonald's or whatever. And it was in German. There was no option to change the language. So I was looking, but I'm fussy, and I was like, I'm going to want this, going to want that. So I just thought, I'm not going to bother. No. And it was only on the day of the final that I had a currywurst.
You got all that way,
all just that way, and I'd won. And it was, you know what? It was I was gutted because it was brilliant. It was a game changer. That day was interesting. That Irish bar was funny. There was obviously it was 99% blokes, and there was the toilets were just overflowing with blokes, obviously. And there was a little woman's toilet next to it, and men were just going in there, and I think someone obviously complained, and they sent this little woman. She was tiny, bless her. She was German, but almost looks like a little bit like half Asian.
Okay,
that quite fiery, feisty woman.
Yeah,
stood at the front of the door, screaming at people, "You get out!" And then she said, "I believe that if you do good things, God will reward you. So you give me €1, you can use this toilet." She must have been absolutely raking it in. And people were just going, "There's 5. Go on, just let me in on it." and yeah, that was funny. But I think moving on to the ground that's when the real excitement started building. Yeah. I've got a couple of pictures where we all sort of huddled together at the train station, which are just brilliant pictures. Sort of real, sort of good. happy vibes. The tubes were buzzing. It was actually not too uncomfortable either. I'll actually remember sort of a couple of things on a family note. Driving to Grantham the day before, Talksport were doing a phone in about people you'll be thinking about during the game.
Right.
And part of my sort of football upbringing was me, my dad, and my dad's dad, my granddad.
Yeah.
Watching Grimsby, that was it. We always sort of say three generations. That was our thing. From when I was a small kid, I think he passed away maybe sort of 4, 5, 6 years ago, something like that. Very sorely missed. And I remember texting. I was writing a message to my dad saying they're asking who you'd be thinking about, and while I was typing it, he rang me. And I said, "That's funny you should ring me. I was just texting you, like asking who you'd be thinking about." And obviously, I mentioned my granddad, who he lived. Football was his thing. Like that was our thing as a little kid when I played my games. He always used to turn up to my football match. Always 5 minutes late. I don't know why. Always 5 minutes late. And it was our thing. So he'd have absolutely loved to. Obviously, he'd have been there in '66, but he obviously wouldn't have seen the sort of uptake in fortunes that has been the last few years. And then inside the stadium, someone put a video on it yesterday, actually on the group. The music they were playing before the game.
Yeah, they had some Oasis. Yeah,
and then they played Robbie Williams' "Angels," which is not a typical football song, but
it's a wedding song, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah. And throughout all the games, actually, I'd always like video call my little brother and my little sister who are football mad, and my dad. Some of my mates are going, "You've had a drink," but I called my dad and sort of had the phone in the air, the crack to Robbie Williams, and I could see my dad was tearing up.
Was he?
And so was I,
yeah.
embarrassingly enough. And it was one of them moments like where you just technology's brilliant, isn't it? It was one of them touchy moments that I'll never forget. Like I could see my dad was going, he was gone, and I wasn't far off. And I think up to then, that was when you thought, "Come on, let's have it." And then the game started, which was we just. I think I wrote a status on my Facebook afterwards, like absolutely no complaints. We lost to by far the better side, and I think we did.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
It's one of them, isn't it, where obviously Southgate's now moved on, which I think I have mixed feelings about, which I think a lot of fans do.
Yeah.
Some obviously wanted him straight out, and I've heard every single argument, and you know what? I can almost sort of see but all of them. I think some people say that the situations we've been in with another manager, we'd have gotten over the line. And I can partly agree with that. But then on the other hand, would we have got to the stages to get to them?
Yeah, we'll never know.
Without, and it's all if your granny had wheels and handlebars, she'd be a bike, wouldn't she? Like it's sad to see him go. I mean, obviously it was my introduction to really sort of following England, and I've had it quite lucky compared to probably you guys. You worry is sort of, where do we go from? There's only one way it can be better, and that's by winning something, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Tournament football is so on a knife edge that all it takes is one incident, and you got another two years. So
that's right.
But coming out of that final was, I think I was one of the. I don't know if you sort of departed or hung around, but I think most of our group sort of departed.
I must admit, I sat around and I watched them lift the trophy. I thought, do you know what?
Yeah,
I don't have the opportunity to see too many finals. I just let the crowds go, just take it in.
That was the. I'll be honest and say I sort of sat and watched it all, and when they lifted the trophy, I shed a little tear. Not, I wasn't balling or anything like that, but I could feel myself welling up. And part of it was because we hadn't won. Part of it was because I think I just had such an amazing time. And it was like, obviously they put the lights, the fireworks, the music, it's quite emotive. And it was like, this is it, it's done. It's all over with.
That's right.
And just sort of sat there in sort of relative quiet, really. Mainly because I didn't want to get back on that coach. I didn't 22, which again, the journey home was awful. On the way there, you're not that bad, are you? Because you're looking forward to it. On the way back, it's murder.
Oh, yeah, man.
But, yeah, it was... I don't know. You question, did they feel different? Even the first Euros final, we took it right to the very end, and it was 50-50 who was going to win it.
Yeah. This
one, you always felt apart from that 5 or 10 minutes, you always felt that we're up against it here. You weren't surprised when their goals went in, were you? Particularly I think if you concede a goal in the dying minutes of a game, sometimes you're like it's panicked. Oh my god! But it just felt like, yeah, I could see that coming. It was a funny one. It was a strange final. It felt totally different to the first one. And then I remember sort of the days afterwards. I remember being sat on that bus and looking for my photos, and as a lot of people did, sort of put like a summary post on your social media. And without a doubt, sort of at work, start of the year, we had to do goals, and I put 3 goals on my list on my notice board. Get my tattoo done, which I did.
Right.
And the second one was obviously Euro 24. And did I sort of achieve what I'd planned and I suppose, did I achieve? Did I experience what I'd set out and hoped for it? Oh, absolutely, 100%. Like, I had some amazing, and as I said right at the start, the best sort of parts of it were almost all outside of the football ground. I mean, 2 other highlights were, as I'm sure you may have seen, I had a couple of previous media appearances which got me a fair bit of stick.
Just talk us through those.
Oh wow! So, well, the first one was ridiculous, and the second one I actually came across quite well, but was completely overshadowed by the first. So
I'd forgotten these. Go on.
It was at the Iceland game, and I'd been at the Green Man, and obviously we all know what the Green Man's like on a match day. So it was, I think Kunal had sort of bought me X amount of Jaegers. I think I'd had a few pints, and I was walking up to Wembley with a mate of mine. You don't see him, but if you knew who he was, you'd see him. But it looks like I'm on my own, and some quite large fella comes up to me and puts a microphone straight in my face, and he says, "You're henchman," which is my excuse straight away, because I think he got me all flustered, complimenting me on my physique, and he said, "What's 8 + 6?" And I look at him and I go, 13, and then I pause for what must be 2 or 3 seconds, and then I go. And I look at him like dead straight on, and I go, 15. And the guy just stares at me with like a blank expression. And that was it. That was the video. And it went viral on TikTok. It's had like 40,000 likes. I'm getting absolute pelters in the comments. And this was like 6 weeks before about 3-4 weeks before the tournament, but it only went viral during the tournament. And I was getting messages galore. Mate, this isn't you, is it? Mate, is this you? And I hadn't seen it. And literally, even to this day now, I keep getting people saying to me, "Is this you?" Or walk down the street, people are going, "Jordan, what's 8 + 6?" And I'll just go, "I don't know." And don't ask me. But so that one was very comical. And then obviously we did for the round of 16 game. Did a few sort of BBC appearances with Canal and the lads, and that one actually come across quite well. It was sort of before and after the game, giving sort of thoughts and opinions. And this is like a 4-minute video, and for some reason they put nearly half of it with me rabbiting on.
Came across well, and it was well done.
did my best. I'd had a few drinks as well. But came out of the ground sort of post. They wanted to see us straight after the game. And I had to get on a coach. It was Dean's, but obviously I said I'd do it. And they captured a moment where we walk out and like put our bags down, and it's like I can't breathe, and I'm like I'm speechless. Like, and I think they actually used the headline. What I said, that's the sort of thing you remember for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Talking about sort of Bellingham's goal and stuff like that. And that was a real. So those two things were a highlight. One of which I'll probably never shake off as long as I live. It's one to show the kids, though.
Yeah.
But it was sort of summarising the tournament as a whole. I think the football was poor to average at best. We showed glimpses of sort of what we're capable of without ever really sort of doing ourselves justice, I think. Yes, there's so many different arguments. You can blame the manager with the systems. You can blame the players for not performing. You can blame the media for putting too much expectation on. I think as a whole, I think there was only one real standout side, wasn't there? And that was the Spanish. I think it was quite a poor quality tournament. We haven't even mentioned the Scottish, which obviously was, I thought it was a shame actually, sort of as the tournament went on, because there was a huge contingent and we were all quite closely knit as well.
Yeah.
So there was some good banter there. I remember in Frankfurt, I think he was actually English, wasn't he? The lad who had to walk around that fountain in Scotland. Yeah. And they were all quite a good laugh actually. But it was just, when I was a young kid, and sort of my dad would tell you this, football was Grimsby Town was my life. And I get to more England games now than Grimsby games because of the nature of my work. I sort of get Tuesday night games, and that's about it. If we'd lose a big game, I would be inconsolable. It was life and death. It was sort of, it crippled me, crucified me. I wouldn't speak. I'd be miserable for days, weeks. But now I think as you get older, you actually realise, you know what? It's the people and the places and the memories that, and yet it would have been, I actually said to somebody yesterday, you think if we won that final, we'd still all be out now? Like, of course, devastating to sort of end in the way it did. But I'll touch wood no time soon. But when you sort of sat on your deathbed, you'll have that. And I've got a young son who's free. It was free 2 days ago. And touch wood, if he's into football, like the stories I'll be able to tell him, and sort of one day take him, and that's what it's all about. I think
loads more memories still to make.
100%, and that's what made it all. So, and I spoke to a couple of people who sort of weren't football fans. Oh, that was all worth it. They lost. I was like, you just don't understand. Like it's about people. That's why they put these big events on. I mean, it's about people, isn't it? And it's about sort of network. I must have met 30, 40, 50 people in the last month and I'd say sort of half of which I consider sort of people I would speak to regular now. And obviously we've got the future games coming up with sort of the Islands and the Finland. And you think, I can't wait to get back to see these people. When I started following England, in the Euros, I went with a few lads from home. And I was the only one who really sort of took the baton on and ran with it and actually fully joined up. And first few games I went on my own. Like I went with a mate to Germany in Munich, but then Milan, I actually went on my own and sort of met up through the 109 club, met up with a few people there. I remember putting a message in Milan in the Facebook group saying, I'm just in Milan, does anyone fancy a bit? I must have had 30 messages, like, come for a drink with us, mate. Like, and that's what it's all about. I mean, I've met, my friendship circle's grown tremendously in a few years just for, and what I love about the England setup as well is they're all proper fans that know what it's like to actually support a football club, and largely lower league fans. You don't typically get many sort of Manchester United or Liverpool fans per se.
Yep.
And you've all got that common ground of usually supporting a not very good lower league team. So you can sort of get your only chance to watch some decent football. Yeah. But it was just, I could go on forever. It was an amazing experience that the only thing I'd change is obviously the the final result.
If only we could do that. Yeah.
That's it, mate. But hey, roll on USA. But I think one thing that I did mention previously was obviously USA is going to be totally different anyway because of where it is, and the next one's in the UK. But so is it Spain the one after that?
Yeah.
Spain, Portugal, yeah, something like that. The in and out thing, I don't know. That's probably one thing I take from it. Would I do it like that again? I'm not sure. It
depends on circumstances, doesn't it, for people?
It does, mate. It does, absolutely. And sort of football fans are very resourceful, aren't they? If we'd have got to flying on the moon, we'd have found a way of getting there. But it was sort of for a first. Again, I mentioned sort of the first tournament. You always remember your first, but obviously in this instance, I'd never forget sort of Germany 24 for everything that it was, good, bad, and ugly. Really, one thing I definitely won't miss though is I'll never get on another German train again. I'll tell you that for nothing.
Oh, Jordan, love it. Thank you very much for sharing your memories with us. We really enjoyed chatting and just hearing them once again.
My pleasure, mate. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah.
And, let's hope for some more good times ahead.
Thanks to Jordan there. Enjoyed that. Despite him reminding me of the time he pepper sprayed me. All good. Thanks for listening. As I mentioned, I'll have a few more fans' memories of Germany to come, so stay subscribed and you won't miss them. And don't forget, you can contribute to the show's well-being, as it were, to its monthly hosting by heading to kofi.com/3 Lions Podcast, ko-fi.com/3 Lions Podcast. Any contribution, it goes towards the hosting costs and the website domain. It's always appreciated. Thank you. I will be back with you very soon. I hope you can join me. Perhaps we'll know by then who the new England manager will be. Who's your money on? Until then, take care of yourselves. Cheers.